Life in the slow lane, living with Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease has been called the designer disease because each case is unique. Every story is personal. Diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2005, Judy Recher presents her own personal viewpoint of some of the challenges that she and others with Parkinson's face on a daily basis. Since 2011, Judy has helped to raise public awareness of Parkinson's disease and to understand that in spite of its prevalence within the community, diagnosis and treatment of the disease is an unrecognised challenge for so many sufferers and for those who support them. Every year since 2012, during the International Parkinson's Awareness Week in September, Judy has given an informative and inspirational presentation at the Hornsby Shire Library. Today's presentation will be the fourth chapter in her story of life with Parkinson's. As her symptoms have changed over time, it has been possible for others to follow the progression of the disease as she describes some of the challenges she experiences. In spite of her own developing limitations, Judy still actively seeks opportunities to inform the general public of the insidious nature of Parkinson's disease. Please join me in welcoming Judy Recher.
I may do this several times during the time because you're out of focus right now. I couldn't go any further. I reached out and touched her arm and I said, "Are you going to order something now?" She said, "Yes." And I said, handing her $5, "Could you please order a cappuccino for me? I can't move very well right now." She took the money and I moved over to the closest table, my legs cramping as my muscles tried to hold me back and push me forward at the same time. And I sat down. She brought me my change and joined her friends at another table. I sat there and drank my coffee and watched the other shoppers go by. And then when I was ready, I got up and I walked over to her table and I said, "Thank you so much for helping me. I have Parkinson's disease, and when my medication runs out, I can't move very well." She accepted my thanks and told me that her husband, sitting next to her, also had Parkinson's disease. He and I are among the 80,000 Australians who have Parkinson's disease. And in spite of its prevalence, many people in the community, even professional medical people, do not know the impact that Parkinson's can have on the individual, their family and carers, their communities, or the nation as a whole. Now let me give you a bit of background. For more than 40 years, my husband and I have lived on Dangar Island, in the middle of the Hawkesbury River, north of Sydney. We have boat access only, and we do not have a car. So we do most everything, by public transport, except when our friends feel sorry for us and give us a ride. And I take my boat back and forth to Brooklyn, my little boat with a 15 horsepower motor, and I go to my exercise class. Now, what is Parkinson's disease? It is a progressive, debilitating, incurable disease of the central nervous system. Our brains have cells called neurons, which produce a chemical called dopamine. Now, dopamine is essential for smooth muscle movement. And when it is reduced, the body slows down. And sometimes it even stops. Now, with Parkinson's, there is no diagnostic test. You can't just walk into your doctor's surgery and say, "Check me, I think something's going on here," and he'll come up with you lose words too. And they come up with the diagnosis. It doesn't work that way. So there's no known cause for it. But when a person has been diagnosed, finally, with Parkinson's, over 80% of those dopamine-producing cells in the brain have already died. And those cells are critical in terms of attaching to the dopamine and making certain that it gets to the part of the brain where you're going to be able to move freely. Welcome. 30 people a day are diagnosed with Parkinson's. 30 a day. And in the last 6 years, there's been a 17% increase. And I just heard yesterday that Simon Lewis, who's one of the researchers here in Sydney, said that the number of people suffering from Parkinson's disease is going to dramatically increase over the next 10, 20 years. Dramatically increase. 20% of the people who have in our workforce are affected by Parkinson's. And the ones that are so difficult are the ones who are under 40. I mean, imagine what it's like to be starting out with your family, your career, your home, and have a diagnosis of Parkinson's come on you. You have so many problems ahead. And the cost to the nation in lost income, skills, and the social cost of medical is $8 billion in 1 year. So what are the key symptoms of Parkinson's? Well, as Mary said, each case is different. There's no copying from one to the other. They're unique. So therefore, every story that's told about Parkinson's is unique. Key symptoms, the ones that people who are most relate to Parkinson's, is the tremoring, where you can't stop. It's not always the arm. It can be any part of your body. You cannot stop the movement. It's involuntary. Another symptom is rigidity, stiffness. Now, right now, my medication is on. That means that it's working. But during the course of this presentation, it might go off. That means that it runs out of my system and there's nothing left. If that happens, you will see a change in the way I move, the way I'm talking, whatever. And that change cannot be controlled. As you get into the further stages of Parkinson's, the potential of falling is very high because your balance is affected. And the balance can be affected by all sorts of things. But the main point is that you need to be strong in terms of your legs up and down and muscles, and you need to be flexible, and you need to be able to remember what you want to say. That's a symptom of Parkinson's, by the way. And your movements are slow. I have to give myself an extra half hour minimum to make the same train connection as, say, half a year ago, 6 months ago. A half an hour additional to make that transition. And not only does Parkinson's affect the motor part of your body in terms of walking and all those different things, it also affects your mental ability. You have difficulty in remembering things. I've said to several of you already, I cannot remember names and faces, even if I've known you before. But it doesn't matter. I'll just say, who are you? It makes it difficult for you to think. It makes it difficult to focus on things. So how do these symptoms affect the person who has Parkinson's? Well, the tremor can be very bad. One of the subjects in my book that I'll talk about later said that the tremor is so bad that he can't read. The tremor can be so bad to one of my friends that when she tries to make a pot of tea, she has to be careful, otherwise she ends up with tea leaves all over her kitchen wall. And one day she told me she had oatmeal on the wall. All you can do in that case is just laugh. Parkinson's affects the body in ways that are not anything to do with movement. The autonomic nervous system, your speaking, your swallowing, it can affect your face in terms of the expressions become limited, And it also can bring anxiety and depression to yourself, to the people who are helping you. In 2011, Parkinson's New South Wales and Toastmasters International got together to form a group of people who would go out and talk to the community about the impact of Parkinson's disease. I'm one of those people. And over the time that I've been doing this for the last 4 years, my talks have changed as my symptoms have changed. I think they were more exciting in the beginning than they are now. But who's to say that's what happens with Parkinson's? But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak to you here today. And I want to show you some of the symptoms that I face and others face on a daily basis. And if you don't know those symptoms, if you haven't experienced them, there's no way that you can imagine what it's like. Each case is unique, I said. Each story is personal. So when I tell you my story today, a continuation over the last 4 years, I hope it will help you to recognize that Parkinson's does not define who you are or what you have to give to others. Now, in the beginning, diagnosis for Parkinson's is very difficult. In fact, some people can wait 5 years and go through all sorts of tests, or even longer, before they are actually diagnosed with Parkinson's, especially the younger people. But because my mother had Parkinson's, I suspected that I had it in 2005 because my right arm didn't swing when I walked. Normally your arms swing as you walk. With Parkinson's, they don't. My steps, instead of being normal, were close together and fast, and you end up in a position like this. I couldn't brush my teeth on the right side of my mouth. It just wouldn't work. And my handwriting became smaller and smaller and smaller, till it would just disappear, completely disappear. An experimental dose of cinnamon, which is a dopamine-producing medication, completely reversed my symptoms. And that was confirmation of the diagnosis for me. So living with Parkinson's, it's a progressive, debilitating, incurable disease. But in spite of this gloomy prognosis, life with Parkinson's can show you hidden strengths that you did not know you had. Namely, when you think you can go no further, you keep on going. Glenda Reichman is in the 2014 annual report of Parkinson's New South Wales. And she said, "I never knew how strong I could be until being strong was my only choice." With Parkinson's, progression of the disease is usually slow, and the treatment comes by managing the symptoms as they arise. So you may have one person being treated for the tremor with the medication, another person being treated for, I can't even think of how they'd be treated, but each person is different, and you can be unaware of the symptoms, but only when they build up to become something of a problem. Just for example, my friends Ian and Denise, I was with them one day, and Ian started to sway back and forth like this. And Denise said to him, "Ian, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm trying to figure out which one of you I talk to." Well, you may think that's funny until you realize that Parkinson's is affecting his eyes so that he sees double. Now, I'd like to ask you, and it doesn't matter whether you have Parkinson's or not, how many of you have trouble turning over at night, in the wintertime especially, in your bed? Please let me know. So it's hard. I want you to tell me, you feel like you want to get out of your bed, or you want to turn over in your bed, and you feel like you've been glued to your sheets with Velcro. And the more you twist and turn, the harder it is. Okay? Well, let me tell you, I've solved that problem. With my satin nightshirt and my satin sheets, when I want to turn over in bed, I just slide from one side to the other and chase my pillow down the wall. Now just imagine if both of you wore satin nightwear with satin sheets, there'd be no telling where you'd end up. For me, it's only in the last year that I've noticed significant changes in my symptoms that are beginning to impact on my daily life. Now, one thing that we know, those of us with Parkinson's disease are at the mercy of our medication. It is critically important for us to take it on time, for us to know what it does, what its effects are supposed to be, if there are any side effects. It's all very, very important to know that. One man in my research has a 15-minute window. That's all. If he doesn't take his medication in that time, he starts to sweat and he can't move at all, and it's very, very difficult. So the taking of the medication on time is critical. Last year I had major surgery, and my neurologist told me, I raised the subject with him first, but then he agreed, and so did my surgeon, that I control the medication when I'm in the hospital, not the nurses. I control it. Because there are cases of people getting out of their medication regime and ending up seriously ill in hospital because others did not understand what was happening to them. So you want to take care of your medicine. Some of the changes that I've seen myself in the last year is an increase in the dyskinesia, which is what I'm doing right now, involuntary movement. And it depends on where I am in the case of my medication as to whether I'm going to have a lot or not. And we're experimenting now, my neurologist and I, with the medication to try to reduce the dyskinesia. What happens at home is I'll be in the kitchen working, and you hear this sort of drum sound, boom, 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 boom. Well, that's just me hitting the kitchen cupboards as I move through the kitchen. I also have found that when I'm trying to do something in the kitchen, that my legs will start to spread apart without me being aware of it. And they keep spreading further and further and further until I realize that I'm down in this position and I haven't tried to get there, and I have to get myself back up. And another way this dyskinesia is affecting me is that when I sit up and say I'm reading a book, or maybe I'm eating my dinner, and I realize I'm all bent over like this, and I have to consciously pull myself back up. And one night during dinner, I fought that battle 6 times. It was so frustrating because I could feel, when I pulled myself back up, I could feel the need to get back down again. And one of my visits to my neurologist, there was a woman sitting there in the office in a wheelchair over like that. But you never know how things are going to affect you. For me, the symptom of most concern is freezing. Now, freezing is when you're walking, all of a sudden your feet freeze to the floor. It's like you can't move. But the momentum of your body can carry you forward. And people with Parkinson's can fall a lot. And freezing is of concern to me. And there are several ways that it really does affect me. It makes it more difficult for me to be independent, both at home and when I go out. I like coming to Hornsby to shop, mostly for food stuff, but it becomes difficult. Freezing is not affected by medication. It's not responsive to medication. And it can be so frustrating. When I get off the train and I go up and put my ticket in a little thing, the gates open. I get my ticket again, put it in, the gates open, and I go through. And people are really getting used to holding the elevator doors open for me. It can be frightening in terms of being in fear of falling. My mother had Parkinson's, and in the 12 years that she had it, she fell 3 times. The first time she broke her arm. The second time she broke her collarbone. But the last time she broke her neck and had to have a halo brace drilled into her skull for 7 months. It can be frightening in other ways, the freezing. One day when I came home from my exercise class, I brought my boat up to our pontoon to tie it up. And as I pulled in, all the energy flowed out. There was nothing left. Somehow or other I managed to tilt up the motor, do all the tying up and locking up of the boat, and then I stood on the front seat of the boat, just needing to step over onto the pontoon. And I stood there, and I stood there, and I started to cry. And finally, I don't know how, finally I got onto the pontoon. Well, by then I was crying so hard that it was a cleansing, gut-wrenching, all the anger and pain and frustration and rage and all that was coming out in that crying. And when I got upstairs and my husband put his arms around me and tried to console me, I said, no, I have to do this. I have to let this go. Now that's in the 10 years since I was diagnosed. This has happened to me twice. And it is critical to be able to flush out all that negativity and know that things are really good. I know that for me and for every single one of you, whether you have Parkinson's or not, that exercise is the best medicine you can take. There is no getting around it. Parkinson's New South Wales recognizes this now, and they have beautiful classes, PD warriors, Parkinson's disease warriors, exercise classes designed specifically for people with Parkinson's. You have the punching Parkos, which is boxing. And because boxing and these other PD warrior programs, what they do, they not only challenge you physically, you have to work hard. You have to be vigorous in your exercise, and no mamby-pamby around. You have to work. But it also challenges your brain because they set up different patterns for you to follow. And it is so important to have this exercise. And my life, living on Dangar Island for 40 years, and not having a car, and going up and down the train steps, 100 of them, it means that I am stronger than I was when I first started doing my exercise program 5 years ago. In addition to the physical strength that I've got, even though you can't see it, I've tried to train my brain to help me in terms of the conscious instructions of my brain to have me do something. For example, walking is one of those things that we do without thinking, all right? Like swallowing, like breathing, like digesting food. Walking is something we do without thinking. But with Parkinson's, the part of the brain that controls that doesn't work. So what you do is you end up doing a substitute with another part of the brain by saying, at least for me, my pattern is if I'm stuck, all I have to do is say, those who are here before, what do I say? What do I say, Jeanette?
Big little steps. Big steps.
That's right. Big steps, big steps, big steps, big steps. Now I can be frozen in my doorway at home and be unable to move, and in my head I say, big steps, big steps. Now there's different patterns for people. They set up their own way of moving to break that pattern, and it works. Now what about the research into Parkinson's has really accelerated over the last few years. There's a big difference in the 4 years that I've been speaking. And this last week I went down to the annual Parkinson's New South Wales annual research seminar. And the research is showing that unlike what we thought years ago, that the brain was a static organ that you could not put anything into after a certain age, that it became really hard, it's been discovered that it is an incredibly flexible organ, and it can absorb material and change the pathways of behavior quickly. It's wonderful, the neuroplasticity. And so what these exercise programs are doing is they are changing the pattern of our brains to be able to accommodate what we need. Now, one of the things I just read, and I'd read it before, is there was one woman who she wasn't disabled. She lived a normal life, but she was slow. The first time she had an MRI, they found out that she had nothing on the left side of her brain. The left side of her brain was black from the time she was born. And yet she walked and talked and lived and did all those things because her right side of the brain compensated for all that. And this is what's happening. Stroke victims who have undergone training, which involves treatment like a child, like a baby, learning to walk in all those different ways. Stroke victims have had full recovery. So this is really exciting in terms of the research that's being done. And I'll be really glad when they get it ready for me and I can inject my T cells or whatever I need to do and make it good. So what about the impact of Parkinson's on the other parts of my brain? Well, it's cognitively, it's really hard to be objective, to figure out what's going on. I know that in 2008, when I was preparing lectures for teaching my postgraduate environmental management students how to give good, exciting seminars, that 13-year career was at an end because I was trying to match 4 speakers to 4 evaluators, and I couldn't do it. And I stood up beside my desk and I yelled, "I can't do this!" And I ended up then, I had a friend who also was a Toastmaster who took over my classes. She worked with me for 2 years, so in 2011, that was her first year that she took over the course. So my students still got the information, but it was so frustrating. If I look at my life in a sense of where I am intellectually and so on, I find that when I graduated from high school, I was the top of my class of more than 200 students. When I graduated from university, I was the top of my class and had a full fellowship for a PhD in cellular physiology at Stanford University. And now, I can't remember a list of 6 things. 6 jobs to do, 6 things to memorize, 6 whatever. I cannot. Much to the frustration of my very, very patient husband. He thinks I don't listen to him. I listen to him, but it doesn't register anywhere in between. And that's one of the things with Parkinson's. And what about my ability to communicate with others? My friends who know me know how much I love being up in front. When I was a little girl, my mother had to take me out of my bedroom window because I was doing a striptease for the people on the sidewalk below. I don't do that anymore. When I was a little girl, I told my mother that I wished my mouth went all the way around my head so I wouldn't get tired when I talked. Well, it doesn't. And I don't. When I talk to you about the importance of your medication regime and the importance of knowing the side effects, I have a really wonderful example. When Harry and I get our groceries most of the time, we will do the online shopping. And our biggest item that we buy is long life milk. And the reason we buy long life milk is because I love to drink it, and I drink it every opportunity I get. I wash down my medication with it, and it's really wonderful. Well, the last time we had a big order of milk, we got it on sale. We were saving $1.35 per liter. That's good. Especially when we bought 225 liters for $303. That's a lot of milk, a lot of money, and a lot of labor to get it from the mainland to our place and up the 49 steps to our house. In the meantime, my body's telling me, Judy, you have no energy. You can't think. You can hardly move. And I'm thinking to myself, is this how it's going to be from now on? And then I read in one of my books, the reason because I drank the milk was in the beginning when I first read about Parkinson's. I was told that, or I read that cinnamon can cause upset stomachs. That's the dopamine medication. It can cause nausea and stuff. That's why I had milk. But now I read that you don't take protein with cinnamon because it slows down the absorption and prevents you from being able to go on again. So for 9 years, I took my doses with milk. Now initially I started out with four times a day. Then I went to 5 times a day. And that is a lot of milk every day. So you need to know the side effects of your medication as well. Now, Parkinson's has taught me that whether I'm on or whether I'm off, I can still make a difference. Now, on and off. On is when your medication is working and you are able to move freely. In the beginning, 3 times a day was all I needed to take my medication. And it's called the honeymoon period. There's a definite change between on and off. It is so dramatic that I had a great time with it for the first 5 years with my friends because I would be off and walking slowly with them. And then all of a sudden my medication would kick in and I'd be out like a bat out of hell. My brother said I was like the little ever-ready bunny. It would make such a difference. But over time, the interval that you have, that you're on, becomes shorter. And the off time when you have no energy, comes sooner. And you end up having to take more medication. And then more medication. And then what happens, which is the stage that I'm at now, I'm at the, not the first stage, second stage, I'm in the middle stage now. What happens then is that you end up with too much dopamine in your system. And that's when you get the bradykinesia, the movements that I'm doing today. So it's such a delicate balance between medication and treatment and being able to live an absolutely normal life. So as I say, what I have learned from Parkinson's is that whether I'm off or whether I'm on, whether I'm frozen or whether I'm mobile, I can still make a difference. This is my 12th public awareness seminar. And I know it's not as exciting as it could be, but that's what happens with Parkinson's. I love talking. Has anybody noticed that?
Yes.
And I talk about Parkinson's a lot. When I went up to Armadale to spend time with my daughter, I was invited to go to the Rotary Breakfast Club. Well, I was picked up at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is when I take my first medication. And I went to the venue that they had, walking in with my cane, and I sat down. They had breakfast, and then they evaluated a young woman who was giving a speech the following week, and then it was my turn. Well, okay, here I am. I'm talking to you now. The contrast was so great that the president said, "Will you come and give us another talk?" And I said, "Sure." This was in April of 2013. Then I went to the markets on the mall on the Sunday morning. And I'm walking along, and I hear a voice, "Hey, you're moving much better now." And it was the president of the club, and he wanted me to speak also to his men's shed club. And then I went into one of the local boutiques, and I'm looking at the things, the clothes, and the medication ran out. And it went, boom, completely out. And I stood there. And when that happens, the tears rise, and, medication out, tears up. Not necessarily crying, but very, very vulnerable. All it took is, "Are you all right?" Whew. The tears started, and they were hard. And I said to her, "Don't worry about it. It's not emotional. It's just chemical." And she sat me in the front on a stool to wait till my daughter came to pick me up and take me home. Well, then the next day was Monday, and I bounced into her shop, and she said, "Oh my God, will you come and talk to my group?" So with that one thing, I had 3 bookings. But I didn't do them until 2014. No, I did them April this year, 2015, because I had a big interruption of my life last year. And when I went up this last April, I called ahead of time and ended up having a seminar with a member of Parkinson's New South Wales with me, and we gave a workshop to people there in Armadale. And it was perfect. So, talking about it, that's the main problem that people have. If they have Parkinson's, often they'll hold the information in to themselves or be even advised by their doctors not to, "You don't need to say anything." Younger people could be afraid they'd lose their job if they admit they have Parkinson's. So, we aren't alone, those of us with Parkinson's and our families. In the world, there are 6.3 million people with Parkinson's disease. And you have organizations like Parkinson's New South Wales, which it's a not-for-profit organization that offers counseling, information, support groups, and so on. And you have Shake It Up, which is another organization. time is it?
10 past 10.
Okay. So these groups, Shake It Up works with Michael J. Fox's foundation. And these groups, their whole purpose is to earn money for Parkinson's research. And it is just so wonderful what they do. So in conclusion, I know that I'll never be free of Parkinson's disease. So what does this mean for me in the years ahead? Well, in spite of my challenges and concerns for my future, I have to say that Parkinson's has taught me so much. When I look back over the last 10 years, I see my illness as a little red flag next to my path, put there by my guides and my angels. And with it is a message that says, Judy, you're not giving enough time to do the important things. So we're going to give it to you. Parkinson's disease has opened so many doors for me. And I'm thankful for them as opportunities to learn and to grow. I know there will be slow times. I know there will be low times. But I know that these times do not define who I am. My daughter told me, enjoy your moments of inability. Have you ever thought that they could be gifts of time just to be? This can be your time for reflection, for building inner strength, and to prepare for the next step in the fight against Parkinson's. Now, in my own way, I'm fighting back. This is my 12th community awareness presentation. And because my symptoms have changed with time, each presentation has been a challenge. And let me tell you, today has been the biggest challenge. I have volunteered to be part of 2 research studies at the Sydney University's Brain and Mind Institute. And I have willed my brain for research, but only when I'm finished with it. And most importantly, I believe in myself and what I can do right now. Like everyone in this room, all we have is now. So whether I'm off or whether I'm on, I will do as much as I can, as hard as I can, for as long as I can. I will never give up.